On a quiet night, in November 1978, 4 young employees of a Burger Chef restaurant in Speedway, Indiana, vanished. What began as a simple closing shift would become one of the most haunting unsolved crimes in American history. No eyewitnesses, no clear motive, and despite decades of investigation, the killers were never brought to justice. This is the story of the Burger Chef murders, a mystery that still haunts a small town. Speedway, Indiana, a suburban town just outside Indianapolis, was the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors. It was a quiet, close-knit community, known more for the famous Indianapolis Motor Speedway than for crime. The Burger Chef restaurant on Crawfordsville Road was a local landmark, a popular spot for teenagers to grab a bite after school and for families to enjoy a quick meal. It was a symbol of simple, suburban life. On the night of Friday, November 17, 1978, everything seemed normal. The 4 young employees on the closing shift were getting ready to head home. There was 20-year-old Jane Friedit, the assistant manager, who was known for her responsible and caring nature. With her were 17-year-old Ruth Shelton, 17-year-old Daniel Davis, and 16-year-old Mark Flemons. They were just kids, working part-time jobs, with their whole lives ahead of them. They cleaned up, locked the doors, and prepared to leave around 11 p.m. For them, it was just another Friday night. No one could have suspected that this night would be their last, and that their disappearance would trigger a mystery that would endure for decades. The next morning, the Burger Chef was eerily quiet. An employee arriving for the morning shift found the back door unlocked and the restaurant empty. The purses of Jane Friedit and Ruth Shelton were still in the office, and the place looked as if the closing crew had simply vanished. Mid-task, when none of the 4 employees could be reached, their families grew frantic. The police were called, and a search began. Inside the restaurant, investigators found some disturbing clues. The safe, which should have contained over $500 from the night's earnings, was open and empty. This immediately pointed to a robbery, but something felt wrong. There were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry. It was as if the perpetrators were let in, or perhaps they were already inside. The scene was too clean, too quiet. Robbery alone didn't explain what happened next. The entire community held its breath. For 2 long days, families and friends desperately searched for any sign of the missing 4. Flyers with their faces were plastered all over town. The hope was that they had been kidnapped for ransom and would be returned safely. But that hope was brutally shattered on Sunday afternoon. A man walking his dog in a remote, wooded area in Johnson County, more than 20 miles away from the restaurant, made a horrifying discovery. There, in the cold November woods, lay the bodies of the 4 missing employees. The scene was gruesome. Daniel Davis and Ruth Shelton had been shot multiple times with a .38 caliber firearm. Mark Flemons, it was later determined, had suffered a blunt force trauma to his head. He may have been struck by a chain or a tire iron and died from choking on his own blood. The brutality and suddenness of the crime sent a shockwave of terror through Speedway and the entire state of Indiana. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. It was a massacre. The investigation began immediately, and it was massive. Authorities from local, state, and federal agencies descended on Speedway, determined to find the killers. In the first few weeks, hundreds of potential suspects were questioned. Initial leads seemed promising. The prevailing theory was a robbery that had escalated into murder, perhaps because one of the victims recognized the perpetrators. Police looked into known criminals with a history of armed robbery. They followed up on every tip, no matter how small, but they hit a wall. There were no fingerprints left at the crime scene, no murder weapons were ever found, and no concrete physical evidence linked anyone to the murders. Complicating matters were the conflicting witness statements from the night of the crime. Another witness, a fellow employee who had left earlier, remembered seeing 2 men, one with a beard and one clean-shaven, inside the restaurant shortly before it closed. He thought they might have been acquaintances of the manager. These descriptions led to police sketches that were widely circulated. but the men were never definitively identified. The timeline was a mess, and every lead seemed to dissolve into another dead end. Decades later, the investigation remains a frustrating puzzle, a collection of theories with no proof. So who were the main suspects? Over the years, several individuals have come under scrutiny. One of the earliest theories focused on a group of men from a nearby town known for a string of fast food robberies. One of them bore a striking resemblance to the police sketch of the bearded suspect. This group was notorious for its violent methods, and the motive of robbery seemed to fit perfectly. However, despite intense surveillance and questioning, investigators could never find enough evidence to tie them directly to the Burger Chef crime scene. Their alibis, while shaky, couldn't be broken. Then there was the inside job theory. Some speculated that an employee, or someone intimately familiar with the restaurant's layout and procedures, could have been involved. The fact that the safe was opened without being forced suggested someone knew the combination or how to manipulate the staff. This led investigators to look at current and former employees, but again, no solid evidence emerged. It was a plausible idea, but one that couldn't be proven. A more chilling theory proposed that the murders were not about robbery at all, but were linked to a drug deal gone bad. One of the victims was rumored to have been involved in selling small amounts of marijuana. Could a dispute over drugs have led to such a violent confrontation? This theory suggested the robbery was staged to mislead police. Investigators looked into this angle, questioning associates and friends, but found no credible information to support it. Finally, there was the possibility of a random, opportunistic act of violence. Perhaps a group of criminals just happened to target the Burger Chef that night, and things spiraled out of control. While possible, the low crime rate in Speedway made this seem less likely. The calculated nature of the abduction and the remote location of the murders suggested a degree of planning that went beyond a simple crime of opportunity. All of these theories remain unproven. Every lead seems to fade into another dead end, leaving the case perpetually open. The impact on the town of Speedway was profound and long-lasting. The community was traumatized. This was a place where people left their doors unlocked, and suddenly, that sense of security was shattered. Parents were afraid to let their kids walk home alone. The Burger Chef, once a cheerful gathering spot, became a grim landmark. The media coverage was intense, which put immense pressure on law enforcement, but also fueled a storm of rumors and false leads that further complicated the investigation. Even decades later, the community has not forgotten. Memorials and annual anniversary articles keep the story of Jane, Ruth, Daniel, and Mark alive. Their faces are a permanent part of the town's history, a constant and heartbreaking reminder of 4 young lives stolen far too soon. The Burger Chef restaurant itself was eventually torn down, but the empty lot where it once stood served for years as a silent monument to the tragedy. The case of the Burger Chef murders is a labyrinth of unanswered questions. Who killed the 4 employees? Was the robbery the primary motive, or was it just a cover for something else? If modern forensic technology had been available in 1978, could DNA evidence have solved the case? Why did a massive multi-agency investigation fail to secure enough evidence to bring anyone to justice? These questions highlight the limitations of investigative techniques in the 1970s and the painful fragility of justice when hard evidence is scarce. Today, the Burger Chef murders case remains officially unsolved. Over the years, suspects have been investigated. Some have even reportedly confessed on their deathbeds, but no one has ever been charged. The families of the victims have been left in a state of limbo, denied the closure that a conviction would bring. The story continues to fascinate true crime enthusiasts and amateur detectives worldwide, who pore over the details, hoping to find the one clue that everyone missed. The Burger Chef murders are a haunting reminder that some crimes leave behind scars that never fade, and questions that may never be answered. This is Criminal Verse, where every crime hides a story. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in more unsolved mysteries, be sure to subscribe.